Hi, I'm Sunny Galt, and welcome to Kid Points. Today we're talking about sibling rivalry, and joining us is our special guest, Linda Sorkin. She is a licensed marriage and family therapist. You work a lot with kids and a lot with families, right?
Yes.
So I think the big question for parents is, isn't it normal for kids to fight, and how do we distinguish it from being a day-to-day activity or an issue versus just something kids do?
Absolutely. I mean, you're bound to have siblings have conflict and arguments with each other, and there's different personality styles and temperament. You're going to have fights that come up. Where it does get to be more of a problem is in the frequency of the fighting as well as the intensity of the fighting. You can also predict more sibling rivalry or conflicts to happen when there's more stress in the family. Either there could be a divorce going on, or there could be a medical issue with one of the parents or another child, or maybe a child's having some problems academically, socially. So if they're not feeling so good about themselves, they might take some of their stress or pressures out on their siblings.
What should parents do if their kids start fighting?
The most important thing, I believe, is to not take sides. So a lot of times parents aren't even there in the heat of a discussion or a conflict to know really what's going on. They're just screaming, "Mom, come in, get involved in this," and you don't really know who started the conflict, what happened. All you know is chaos broke out in the family. So it's important to get them to, separate and encourage them to begin to work out or resolve their problems. But if you don't take a side and you try not to intervene so much and not be like the referee all the time, because that gets immensely exhausting for a parent. Another thing you can do is begin to encourage them to resolve their conflicts. So we really do need to teach them some conflict resolution skills, such as learning how to negotiate, compromising. If it gets heated, like I said, make sure there's a cool-off period for them before they can come back together to begin to kind of problem solve and find some solutions.
What about a physical argument as opposed to something that's just verbal?
When it comes to physical arguing or an interaction, I think in no uncertain terms should there be any physical engagement between the kids. So for parents, what they need to do is make sure that they set clear expectations and rules that states you may not place your hands or get physical with your brother or your sister.
How can parents use the Kid Point system to assist in sibling rivalry?
You can have a behavior contract that will encourage siblings to not fight. You can specifically put down what type of behaviors you want to encourage them to change, and then reward them accordingly. Same with an amends. I think this is important because siblings and children in and of themselves need to learn how to apologize and make amends for their behavior. So there are some amends charts that you can use to get them to learn self-responsibility and how to be accountable for their behavior. And also with the point system. This is something that you can incorporate and reward them for positive behavior, for making changes.
You mentioned conflict resolution techniques, but what does that look like?
Well, with conflict resolution, really you want to begin to get the child to identify what feelings they're having in that moment. Generally, it's anger, frustration, maybe feeling left out, feeling like they're not belonging, part of whether it's a conversation or activity that's going on. And then what's important is to teach them to express those feelings in an appropriate way, where they're not blaming the sibling, but they can begin to potentially use I statements here. For instance, like, "I feel angry when you take my toys from me." And then begin to take a moment and let his or her sibling respond back to them. And another part of the conflict resolution that I think is really important is to teach them how to be empathic. Like, okay, so you know how you feel in that situation. How do you imagine your brother or your sister felt when you hit them because they took your toy away? Or what do you imagine your brother was needing? So they kind of begin to look outside of themselves and see that the way they responded in that situation had a direct impact on their brother or sister, which contributed to the fight as well. Also, what I think is really a good thing about conflict resolution and helping reinforcing the positive way of dealing with conflict is being aware that as a parent, you're a model. Okay? You are modeling for your child how to handle anger, how to handle frustration, how to handle incidences that upset you. They're watching you.
Are there certain triggers parents should be looking for?
Oh yeah, you'll begin to notice patterns that occur. For instance, siblings will fight over who gets to sit in the front seat or who has to sit in the back seat. So what you can do is set up a structure or a rule for them that it's, Johnny, you get the front seat on the way there and Sarah gets it on the way back. So, this way what you really want to do is start a preemptive. Like, just be aware of where you think their strains are and where the crisis or conflict's going to start, and try to put something in there, a tool or something effective for them to resolve a problem before it happens.
How do we encourage our kids to be loving and supportive towards one another?
That is so important. Ultimately, you want your child to be loving and compassionate towards others. The most important thing to do is to be catching your child doing positive things. To catch them being good. Focus on them being good. So let's say you're making dinner and your kids are sitting down doing homework, and you notice that there's no fighting going on. One actually answered a question for another one. They seem like they're cooperating. Or if your little kids are playing quietly together and it seems like they're having fun, acknowledge that. Wow, I really notice you guys are playing great together. It's so nice, So begin to see them and reinforce and acknowledge when they're interacting together positively. That's so important.
Well, Linda, thank you so much for being with us today. It was a pleasure having you.
Thank you so much.